Welcome to a Legendarium special about the life of Michelangelo. In part 2, we will talk about the later years and legacy of the great Renaissance artist. In the first episode, we talked about Michelangelo's work for the Renaissance popes. Unfortunately, Michelangelo's dealings with his papal patrons did not always prove pleasant. He had an especially difficult relationship with the famously combative Pope Julius II. Michelangelo once spent 3 years working on a marble facade for Leo X, only for the Pope to abruptly cancel the project. In 1527, the citizens of Michelangelo's native Florence expelled the ruling Medici family and formed a republic. Angry with the papacy, Michelangelo left Rome and became director of the city's fortifications. Lead paint dripping in Michelangelo's face during the painting of the Sistine Chapel ceiling took a toll on his health. Unable to do hard physical work at this time, he turned his efforts towards architecture. Back in Florence, Michelangelo worked on the interior of the Medici Chapel in Florence. It included wall designs, windows, and cornices. More importantly, Michelangelo made sketches for lookout bastions and even traveled to nearby towns to study their walls. His designs proved a significant obstacle when the Pope's forces arrived to reclaim the city of Florence. Florence survived 10 months under siege before finally falling in August 1530. Michelangelo could have easily been executed as a traitor, but Pope Clement VII forgave him and immediately rehired Michelangelo. Thankfully, the artist enjoyed better partnerships with his later papal patrons. He found an especially great champion in Pope Paul III, for whom he painted The Last Judgment. An immediate outcry over so many nude figures being depicted in a church soon erupted. Some church leaders even called for the destruction of what would be the largest fresco of the Renaissance. However, Paul III defended Michelangelo, and the painter later expanded the work. He painted in his chief critic as a devil, and painted in himself as the flayed and tormented Saint Bartholomew. Michelangelo last visited his hometown of Florence in 1534 before permanently settling in Rome. Michelangelo wrote many lyrical letters to his family members back home. He also showed a strong attachment to young men, especially the aristocrat Tommaso Cavalieri, writing dozens of romantic sonnets dedicated to Cavalieri. It remained unknown if the two had a close friendship or a homosexual liaison. Some scholars note that Michelangelo himself never married and had no known children, so perhaps he longed for a father-son relationship with a younger man. Though a Catholic, Michelangelo also embraced the Renaissance teaching of Neoplatonism. This school of thought taught that a human soul, if powered by love and ecstasy, could reunite with an almighty God. Michelangelo is best known as a visual artist, yet in his day he also became a respected man of letters. He produced several hundred sonnets and madrigals over his career, jotting down stray lines of verse as he hammered away at statues in his workshop. Michelangelo's poetry makes use of wordplay and touches on everything from sex and aging to his overactive bladder. In one poem, Michelangelo lamented a drippy duct compelling me to awake too early. While Michelangelo published none of these works during his lifetime, they circulated widely among Rome's 16th century literati. Later composers even set some of them to music. Michelangelo spent his later years overseeing construction of St. Peter's Basilica in the Vatican. After he became too weak to visit the worksite regularly, Michelangelo still supervised the job from home by sending drawings and designs to trusted talented foreman. Sculpture remained Michelangelo's true love, and he continued chiseling away in his home studio until the very end. Only days before he died at the age of 88, far longer than the life expectancy of his time, Michelangelo still worked on the so-called Rondanini Pieta. This depicted Christ in the Virgin Mary's arms, recalling his first great artistic triumph. After his death, a nephew bore Michelangelo's body back to Florence, where his hometown revered him as the father and master of all the arts. The adoring public laid him to rest at the Basilica di Santa Croce, his chosen burial place. Unlike many artists in his time or all time, Michelangelo achieved fame and wealth during his lifetime. He also lived to see the publication of 2 biographies about his life, written by Giorgio Vasari and Ascanio Condivi. Appreciation of Michelangelo's artistic mastery has endured for centuries, and his name has become synonymous with the Renaissance. Sadly, 2 of Michelangelo's most famous works fell victim to vandals during the 20th century. In 1972, a man named Laszlo Toth hopped a guardrail at St. Peter's Basilica and took a hammer to Michelangelo's Pieta. The vandal broke off the Madonna's nose and forearm along with part of her eyelid and veil. Restoration crews later recovered dozens of marble bits from the priceless statue. A guilty American tourist who picked up a piece of marble during the commotion later mailed it back to the Vatican. It took 10 months of repair before the Pieta went on display again, this time behind a layer of protective glass. A similar fate befell the David in 1991 when a chisel-wielding vandal hammered off part of a toe on its left foot. Yet despite that, Michelangelo's genius and legacy endures. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.